The weekly wave. Oh, I can't spell the nose. The weekly wave. Oh, can you tell me who? The weekly wave. Did you see it? The weekly wave. I'm glad you're stopping by. Take him to him, baby. Take him up again. Oh, can you tell me who? The weekly wave. Oh, yeah. The weekly wave. Did it in the nose? The weekly wave.
About damn near anything. Hold on, let me just make sure our volume's all rolling
Damn
on.
near anything.
Send check 1 2. For some reason I'm not hearing this. Am I right? There we go. For some reason I got a little bit of noise going on. Oh well, I can work on that a little bit later.
Where is this?
So that's feeding into that rack right behind you.
So it's right here?
Yeah, and you can adjust that volume as you need.
Okay.
I think this might be. No. Well, I'll just let that. If that little bit of ground hum doesn't bother you too much.
Check. Okay.
And let me go turn on the that final compressor one more time. And if this is ever something that you feel like John would be interested in doing, if you like the experience, feel free to send anyone and everyone my way.
Okay. How long does this need to be?
It's as long as you want it to be, brother. You can kick out at any time. And
Okay.
well, my friends, if you're watching on Twitch or if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for being here. The wonderful Ed O'Donnell. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here with you.
Yeah, man, how many years have we gotten to know each other now? Maybe 3 at this point?
Oh, I think it's more than that.
3, maybe 4?
I think we met in like 2018 or something, didn't we?
That sounds about when I started working with Kevin. So, and Kevin pretty quickly was like, man, you need to meet Ed O'Donnell. And I think, where we first go? I think we went to the Dewey's that's over by Oakley, maybe?
Well, my recollection is a little different. I recall meeting with you at the Mount Lookout Tavern.
Oh!
For lunch or something, or for coffee or something.
Yeah, and I remember playing an Elvis tune for you that day that you digged.
Yeah.
Man, so I was playing Tuesdays every once in a while up there, and I think you'd just come down the street to see that show.
Yep.
And I think I was drinking too much, and I was like, oh man, Ed's not seeing the best side of me today. That's for damn sure.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So you were killing it, man. You're just doing such a great job.
Thanks, brother. Well, you're always one of the people that I think about when I'm trying to say, like, you know, you're a big advocate for folks in Nashville right now, and you do a great job with your songwriters and making sure that they're in the biggest market with the most opportunities that you can find.
Right.
But you're also someone that has made a home in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And when you think about what this town is capable of, you're one of the folks that I hold at the highest regard. And if I'm being lazy, I'm like, I wonder what Ed's doing today. I'm like, oh, I need to get up. I need to get my ass in shape doing something, man.
Well, you know, when I first started out my career in music, I basically decided I wanted to be in Cincinnati because my family was here primarily. That was the main reason. I grew up here, and I thought, why not? Why not do something in music? It's hard because Cincinnati, of course, is not a music hub or a music center, but there is a lot of talent here, and I just found a way. Found a way to make it work.
And how long had you lived in L.A. when you were doing that side of things?
I was in L.A. for about 12 years.
Mm-hmm. And you were mainly in the film kind of world, TV and film?
We did music for TV and film, mostly television. Worked on a show on NBC for about 12 years, and did several other TV projects, but no full start to finish TV shows other than Passions. It was called Passions on NBC.
Cool.
Launched in 1999, and we thought we'd probably last about 6 months on that show. And we were still at it 12 years later. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And when you were doing that, were you still pursuing songwriting as you do now?
No, not really. I mean, there was songwriting as part of the show. I mean, for that particular show, we did all the music.
Mm-hmm.
And we did everything from the underscore to the themes, the main title theme, the closing theme, all the bumpers in and out of commercials, and we did songs that were what they called source music. So if you imagine a scene where you're in a restaurant listening to a jukebox or something, the song that you're hearing would be a song that we would write for the show. Or if it was a song, sometimes they would use existing copyrighted songs, and pop songs basically, but those had to be licensed, of course.
For big money, I'm sure. Yeah, at that stage in TV.
Right, and of course they didn't have a budget, so typically they would come to the show's composers and say, hey, what do you got? Can you write something for us? So for those situations, we would scramble and write something. So one of the fun things about that show actually was it was different every day, and we wrote music from A to Z. It was everything from pop songs to music about, one of the scenes we did was a wedding in hell. If you imagine hell music in a hell chapel.
Yeah.
So it was the storylines were just all over the place, and it gave us the opportunity to write just fun, different stuff all the time.
And are you doing this in your late 20s, early 30s, or how old are you when you kind of stripped into this role?
Into that? Well, I mean, I'd say I think 40s. Yeah.
What an interesting, like you'd say, the diversity of that kind of challenge. Did you find yourself studying for a lot of the things you were being asked to do? Like if they were asking for a wedding in hell, are you looking up some of the best wedding songs and then reading some kind of some book of grief?
Not really. I think the process is more. They send you a script. You look at the script, get a sense for the dialogue and what craziness is happening in this particular scene, and then just try some stuff, and try. It's mostly you might take a song that you would commonly hear at a wedding, a public domain song, for example, and then just mess it up.
Yeah.
Do some messed up version of it, or rewrite it so that the chord voicings are very different.
Yeah.
And sort of disharmonic.
And what did your day-to-day desk space look like for this? Is this you with an acoustic and a legal pad, or how did you kind of go about?
Well, I had two partners doing this job, both composers, so we actually ended up with 3 studios. We had 3 studios going full time to crank out the music for this show, and it was both of their studios were fully decked out synth studios.
Nice.
And I did a lot of the mixing of the stuff. So it was an assembly line, to be really honest with you. I mean, we were cranking out. We did thousands of cues for this show.
That's super weird, though. So did you have a house band that you go to for certain parts and things?
Nope.
Was it new session players all the time?
Well, we didn't do a lot of sessions. Frankly, a lot of it was mostly in the box production.
What a crazy time to be doing that too, at the real precipice of
Right.
can you have synth productions that have all the analog textures that you'd ever wanted to?
Right. You know, the thing about television, especially doing a daytime show, a daily show, 5 shows on 5 days a week, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of, we had to crank out a lot of music and do it very fast. And we came to the job with a pretty big library because we'd been doing TV shows for several years, for many years before that. So we had a pretty big library of stuff that we owned and were able to bring to the new show, and that helped us a lot. But I will never forget the very first episode we did for Passions. It was on 4th of July, 1999. Was the air date? Actually, the air date was July 5th. It was the day after the 4th of July, and I'm sitting in the bungalow on the lot at CBS, finishing the edits and making the changes. And I mean, it took them 3 weeks to approve the first episode.
No way.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting in limbo? Is this thing going to
sitting in
hit or
limbo.
not?
We're still working on the first episode. And the first episode fortunately aired on a Friday, on July 5th, and so we got the first episode wrapped up, made it. You know, I'm sitting in the bungalow listening to fireworks overhead. And I've got the vice president of programming on the phone saying, "Where's my show? Where's my show? Where's my show?
Holy
We
shit.
need to get it up at the satellite. We got to get it up to the satellite. You got 2 hours to get it up to the satellite." And they're still making changes. So we somehow got that episode finished, and sat back and went, "Holy shit, we got 5 more episodes for next week." And we haven't even started on them.
The chaos, the franticness.
Oh God, it was unbelievable.
And
So-
is that a bunch of floppy disks that you carry around that have individual songs that you plug and play as the show airs live in tapes?
No, not it's so the way that the process actually works is we have a music editor who works on scene at the Music Bungalow. So they have music editors that basically they've got like 2 or 3 shifts. I mean, they're doing a show a day. You have to remember that they're videoing, editing, post-producing, and broadcasting a new show every single day.
That's
every
nonsense.
day, 5 days a week.
Are
So-
there unions in this kind of work? I'd
Oh, yeah.
imagine that there's some overworked folks involved.
Yeah, it is. It's all union, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The networks are all union, but so it's a bit of an assembly line process, and you have to have a lot of people involved. So we had 3 composers producing music, producing and editing. A lot of what we had to do was edit because music had to be delivered in a specific format. So we had to make sure everything ended in certain mix packages and all that. So I mean, it's complicated, but we were able to deliver the music, and then they have an editor on site who worked for us, who took the music and put it all on a hard drive, and then he'd get the final edited video of the show, and he would fly through the show and make quick decisions about what cues worked best in what situations, and if we had some specially produced, frequently we would have music specifically written for a certain scene, but we wouldn't custom score the entire show. So we would have our music editor would make a lot of those decisions about, well, we've got this cue works well for that, done. This scene will work with this one. Oh, here's a scene that you guys did a special piece of music for, so let's plug that in here. And then he would edit all that together and deliver that to the producers of the show, and they would make changes, of course, and so in one day he had to crank out a show every single day.
Yeah, how interesting though, where it's like it almost feels like brand colors to some extent. When you watch Seinfeld, you know that most of these types of scenes have this piece of music. So as you get deeper and deeper into the show, you start to have certain assumed pieces of music, and then you almost need to derive certain ideas so they feel congruent to that. It's like this thing has a shape to it, it has a regular contour.
Right.
Do you ever wake up singing any of these old songs?
No.
Suppress that, get it out. No, I'm not dealing with that anymore.
What we did when we realized the sheer volume of stuff we had to do was we created a library of music based on emotional character. So we would say we need light drama, we need medium drama, we need heavy drama, we need suspense, we need horror, we need romance, we came up with a bunch of categories like that we would write in, and then depending on the scene, the role of the music in the scene is to embrace and reinforce the emotion that the actors are trying to convey on camera. So what we would do is try to analyze what is the emotion going on in this scene. And sometimes the music wants to play against that just to add some contrast. But most of the time, you're reinforcing the emotion that the actors and the writers have created for that scene. So we would write in an emotional category. So if it's a romantic scene, for example, we'd have to decide, well, how romantic is this? Is this flirtatious? Is it sort of early romance?
Yeah.
Is it sexy?
Yeah.
How sexy?
Too sexy. Bring it back.
So there are shades of each one of these categories, and we would write for each shade within the category.
You're almost like a musical psychologist at that point in time.
Well, there is a lot of that actually. Trying to figure out, and again, your role as a composer for video or for film is to take what you're given and really make it come to life with the music. The music has to reinforce and without drawing attention to itself in most cases. So the idea, most of the time you have to write something that actually the listener or the viewer isn't even aware of. It's just there, and it's causing the emotions to kind of come through the scene and be felt by the viewer. So there are times when you want to draw attention to the music too, but most of the time you want the music to be felt but not really heard, if that makes sense.
Does that principle kind of apply to your current life in songwriting, where you're 100% there for the lyric, and the things that paint around the lyric need to be almost subliminal, but reinforcing that idea until it's their time to shine, until it's a guitar solo or the tastiest drum fill that you can give me for this little bit of a package?
Yeah, it is actually the current, working with an artist, which is what I'm doing mostly now, is working with artists. It's a different situation because you do want to draw attention to the song and the lyric. I mean, the most important thing in the music business, the pop music business, is the song. If you bring me a great song and a great singer, I can take care of the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I can't fix a bad song or a bad singer. Those are things that I can make a bad singer sound better, but I'm never going to make a bad singer sound like a great singer. There's a God-given gift that either you got it or you don't got it at some point. So my job as a producer is to take those two elements, primarily the song and the singer, and just make the song come to life, bring an authenticity to it. If hopefully it's in the lyric and in the musical styling of the artist, so that the song comes to life and it really presents the artist in the very best possible way.
From my experience with talking with you about songs and seeing the artists that you've really taken interest in, it almost seems, as much as you have a songwriting role and a producer's role, it's very much a coaching role as well, of preparing people for, I don't know what the landscape for your career is going to be by the time this takes off, but we need to make sure that your foundation is set in a way that you know how you like to write, you know how you like to produce, you know how you like to take songs to market, so that by the time that this thing is ready to go 1,000 miles an hour, you know how to be a happy, fundamentally sound individual to do that.
That's exactly right.
Is that a terrifying role to take on with how you see? Because there's so many sad pop stars in the world, and there's a lot of sad local musicians. So helping someone feel secure in such a lofty business, it's something that you've gone through many different variations of it.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to comprehend.
It is. It's complicated because a lot of times artists lack confidence, or they haven't completely formulated their sound or their musical styling, and they're experimenting a little bit. They're trying this, trying that. And so one of my jobs is to help them find a sound that is going to work for them, that has to be has to serve the song, and it has to be creative. It has to be something that they can perform authentically, But it still has to have a certain amount of popular appeal. I mean, this is the music business. So if you want to make a living doing this, you have to come up with a sound that is both authentic and true, but is also commercial to some degree. So every artist exists on this spectrum between pure art and pure commerce. So, the ones that are just pure commerce, they're doing it for the money. They lack some authenticity. They're just out there, playing rock star and, trying to cash in. That's what they do. But then there's also people who are, they're in it art for art's sake, and they don't care if they ever make any money from it. They just want to make something cool and let it sit on the shelf if it has to, but, or put it on the wall or whatever they're going to do with it.
Yeah. They're more like traditional painters, where it's like, maybe I'll be famous in a postmortem kind of way. It's like by the time I'm gone, they'll know what I did. Right.
But most artists have to find some place in the middle between those two extremes, where you're creating art, but it's also art with kind of a purpose, and you've got an audience that you know likes your sound and is open to your art and will pay you for it at some point. So it's a tricky balance to find, and a lot of artists struggle trying to find that point on that spectrum that they're comfortable with, that works for them.
It's an interesting negotiation to walk a young artist through. It's like, I don't know if I've ever had it so clearly laid out of pure art or pure commerce, because at least then that I don't need to be one or the other. There's something about satiating a listener's expectations in providing materials that have a relatability without underselling the specificity that makes it your song.
Yeah.
What's John's song that he had written? Was it about his mother?
Yes, John Wayne Hatfield is an artist I work with.
A phenomenal singer-songwriter from the beautiful Cincinnati area.
He's from Goshen originally, which is outside of Cincinnati.
We're claiming him, though. We need more. I don't care if you're within the 50-mile radius, okay?
Yeah, right.
We're competing with Nashville
right.
and L.A.,
Right. Yeah, so John's story, very briefly, is he was raised by his grandparents and was very, very attached to his grandmother. And she passed away about 6 months before I met him. I met John when he was 18 and had just graduated from high school, and his grandmother, who was such a key part of his life, had just passed away, and he wrote a song about her called "Strong Woman." And John, the first time I met John, actually, he played. He had the core of the song together, but he hadn't actually finished it. And he played what he had for me, and I thought, man, first of all, amazing singer.
Yeah.
He's an incredible singer. Great lyric, emotional, authentic. He's just he's a very, very authentic artist. He really is. So we listened to that, and I said, John, we got to finish that song, and we got to record that song. So we came up. I like to do more than one song when I go in the studio. So we prepared 3 or 4 songs for a studio session. I took him to Nashville, and we recorded "Strong Woman," which is essentially it's kind of got a little bit of a gospel feel to it. I wanted to do something different production-wise, a little, not just slightly different, but so I asked the musicians. Actually, we were sitting in the studio before the session, before we tracked the song, and I said, "Look, guys, I think we should try something a little different. Why don't we give this a gospel feel? Let's just give it a little bit of a gospel feel. Let's kind of feature the piano on this and see what happens." Well, they went out. So the piano player on this track was Gordon Mote, who's been blind from birth. Phenomenal piano player. Gordon listened to the demo that we did and literally walked out to the piano and sat down, first take, nailed the song. John and I were sitting in the control room listening, and I mean, John started getting tears in his eyes, and it was like, oh my God, this is absolutely it.
And was that John's first experience with having a band behind his sound?
Yeah, it was.
What an incredible thing to be able to share with somebody, where the amount of times you've walked into a room full of players and known this is going to go well, it's like it doesn't have the God-sent that it does when you're just playing these songs to yourself and you can never imagine what it needs.
Yeah.
But then someone walks in, especially someone, tell me this gentleman's name again.
Gordon Mote.
You watch some of these guys take the silliest looking shorthand you've ever seen. It's a bunch of numbers and a couple underlines here and there. For a guy to hear the song and say, oh, I felt that well enough to know what I'm bringing to the table. And then just to do it with the zero processing in between,
Well, and the thing about Gordon, of course, is blind, so he can't even look at the chart. We put together a chart for the musicians, of course, but Gordon just sat there and listened to it one time in the studio, listened to the demo, and then went out and killed it. So I mean, he's amazing, and the piano is featured on that track. It's John's #1 streaming song on Spotify. It's called Strong Woman.
And that's Jon Wayne Hatfield, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah. Ever since I started to see him popping up on TikTok or Instagram or things like that, you can feel that authenticity. You can feel that this is a guy that maybe in the way that you mentioned earlier, it's like doesn't look like he's telling you he's going to be the next best thing. But he, at the very core of it, is writing songs about his experience in this life.
Yep.
And he's a young man that's found out that these songs are part of how he views the world.
Yep.
I've always told people, if you love songwriters, if you feel the soundtrack of your life living and breathing through everything you do, and you have the ability to do so, you are called by your heroes to step up to bat and try yourself.
Sure.
And that's an example of a guy who knocked it out of the park when it comes to taking a chapter of life that's hard to put into words for most people, and now you have something to commiserate in. You have this bed to sleep in to understand it.
Yep.
It's very visceral.
Yep. So, John, just a plug for a second. We've just recorded another single for him. It's called "Jealous of Jesus," and the single's being released January 26th.
That's a hell of a name, brother.
Jealous of Jesus. It's a bit of a risky release in a way that it's very stripped down. It's solo piano. So we've never done that before. Just released a major. We've done some YouTube things and some TikTok things with solo instruments, but we've never actually released a single with just one instrument on it. But it is also, by the way, Gordon Mote playing piano on this track.
Fantastic.
So
it's so cool to see those relationships get fledged too, where it's like this is a man that can be in the studio every day of the week, 4 sessions a day if he wants to, making the money that he rightfully deserves. But when you find that relationship between artist and musician, it's worth digging in over and over and over again.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Now, when watching him do the American Idol thing, when I see these shows and the way that they try to make stars, and they've been very successful for some cases, someone like John, in my opinion, has more to offer right now than the show's premise has to give. They're saying come in and sing a familiar song from the pop culture that people are going to love your voice on. It's like, well, he already has songs of his own that'll give you a much better idea of what that voice has to offer, rather than giving you Chris Stapleton for the 15th time this episode.
Right.
But as far as launching people's career into household names, it still serves a great purpose.
Yep.
Do you think that kind of TV and that kind of premise is going to continue to serve artists? Or do you think that the next wave of things is similar to this? Is it Songhouse?
Songhouse?
Yeah.
No, Songhouse is definitely it's a way. you know, and for artists who have, artists are always struggling to find a way to get exposure, more exposure to bigger and bigger audiences. And Songhouse is one way to do it. There are fewer fewer ways to do it now, I think, than in the past. Maybe to clarify that, there are probably more ways to do it, but fewer ways to actually do it successfully. As far as television goes, I do think that American Idol and The Voice and the others are really very good at getting artists exposure. They are, in the case of American Idol is all about the story. It's not so much about the song. It's about here's a guy who comes from a little town in Ohio. He was raised by his grandparents. He had kind of a tough experience growing up, you know. But he grew up to be a great kid. And by the way, he has this amazing voice. And listen to this song he wrote about his grandfather, you know. So it's more really about the story. And the song that he chose to do on that show, Tell Me Ray, it just amplified his story, which is what American Idol really is about.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes when you can make the appeal of an individual with a strong story, it can supersede the value of individual songs, because you'll wait for the right song to come from this artist that already feels resonant to you.
Yep.
To fit them into your musical life. You know, you can love an individual, and then one day that song come along, and you could have been following the whole story just because you felt a heartfelt connection to what that person does. But it's just interesting the way that nowadays with any kind of short form content, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, you can get a hook in somebody's life that you can see it in their eyes, whether it is something that they couldn't help from telling you, a song that they were called to create, or whether they're doing it to get another like on the screen. And I feel like it's almost it's a shortcut to that authentic connection with listeners. But like you said, as the barriers to entry in music have gone way down, you can have a recording studio in your parents' basement and be trying to do the thing.
Yeah.
To make it past that glass ceiling of household name with a great business model and a great opportunity to continue to do this for a lifetime, that has moved farther and farther from that entry point.
Yep. I always say it's easier today than it's ever been to make music, create music, and get music out. But it's harder than it's ever been to make any money from it, to make a living from it.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult business.
Yeah.
It's highly competitive. There's music everywhere. So music is all over the internet. It's all over our lives, everywhere we go. But it's really hard to make any money from it as an artist. So it's really hard to support yourself as an artist. What artists used to be able to make most of their money from 3 or 4 sources. And now they have to make their money from a dozen or more sources. You know, there's lots more sources of pennies coming in for artists. And so it's more complicated to manage and to, you know, promote yourself. So it is very difficult for artists to make a living at this.
Yeah, and as you and I have discussed, just the many ways that individuals collect and trying to be, we're trying to keep a wide lens of all the things that you kind of need to be watching for. You've mentioned the value of mechanical royalties, and that's something that I still don't necessarily understand that well, and I think a lot of artists of my age group don't understand that well, because it's more of a formal part of the business that's been around for a long time, just like having your publishing and your master recording copyrights. Can you speak to how artists should go about looking for their mechanical royalties and keeping an idea of that?
Well, okay, mechanical royalties come from the right within copyright to make copies, physical copies of your art. So originally it started with piano rolls back in the early 1900s. Eventually became true for the record industry. So when you make a record and you make a copy, you make a vinyl copy or a CD copy of a record, you have to have a mechanical license to actually put a song on a mechanical device. Okay, when you record a song onto a mechanical device of some sort, you have to have a license from the copyright owner, and usually that's a publisher. So it's a negotiated license. So you have to go to it's not a negotiated license. The mechanical license is the rate that is paid for mechanical license is statutory. It's defined by law.
And that was done in the 1990s most recently?
Well, most recently, yes.
Something to do with CDs, price per copy per artist?
This has changed a lot over the last 20 or 30 years, but the rate now is 12 cents a copy. And so if you're going to put a song out, I just had this problem with an artist I'm working with. So we put a song out for digital release. Well, if you don't make any physical copies, technically you don't have to have a mechanical license to put out the song. But downloads count now as physical copies. So this went back and forth for years, and the latest copyright law considers downloads to be physical copies because you download it to a hard drive or something. So
they're tangible. They have a serial number
Right.
associated with that particular.
However, streaming is not. So streaming is more ephemeral. A stream, comes and goes, and it's gone. It's not recorded anywhere.
Mhm.
So technically, if you release something for Spotify and it's never put on a CD or a vinyl record or something like that, and you don't download it, if it's not available for download, then technically you don't need a mechanical license. However, if it is available for download, so most people just put it up they send it to CD Baby or whatever, and CD Baby releases it. Well, actually, it's going to iTunes, and iTunes is making it available for download. So technically, a publisher can require you to have a mechanical license for a digital release, unless you specifically tell your distributor, "I don't want it available for downloads." There's another mechanical license, and that is in the recording. So there are two copyrights. This is getting way too complicated.
No, this is what the people need to hear.
But so there are two copyrights. There's a copyright in the song itself, the lyric and the music.
And that's your publishing copyright.
I call it the music copyright or the song copyright. And then there's a copyright in the recording. So when you make a recording of a song, whoever makes that recording owns the copyright in the recording. So you've got two copyrights, the song itself and the recording. And when you upload a song for streaming, so for example, suppose you use CD Baby, the payments that you receive from streaming are for the recording. They're not for the song. They're for the recording. So you are the record label in that case. You're releasing the song. You own the master. The master is generating royalties. Spotify pays your distributor, say CD Baby, and CD Baby pays you as the sound recording copyright owner. So, however, the songwriters get paid too. Spotify also makes payments to music publishers who pay the songwriters for their
contributions to the song itself.
Yeah. So there is a mechanical license for streaming also that is paid by Spotify to the music publishers. So for example, if you and I write a song and we record it, if I produce it and if I own the recording, I'm going to put it up on Spotify. I will make money from Spotify for the streaming, and you as a writer will get paid through your publisher or through your PRO, your ASCAP or BMI, for the mechanical.
Or CSAC if you like to be on the fringe,
CSAC, correct, right.
For your alternative.
But so, the trick to it is just understanding that there are two copyrights. Each copyright has mechanical licensing requirements. So in the case of the streaming or the sound recording mechanical license, that's handled invisibly to most people. It's handled directly by Spotify to the music publishers.
So there's almost two avenues of collection. There's the master recording that
Yeah.
should come through TuneCore, CD Baby, however you did that. But then there also should be one through your PRO, through ASCAP,
Correct.
BMI. And so most artists are probably missing out on 50% of this return, which still we're talking about pennies, but it's a good reason to be involved with the PROs that also have great
Oh.
access to other co-writes, conferences, individual representation when you need to have discrepancies against certain individuals or entities about these songs.
Right.
See, that's something that I've really dropped the ball on the last couple of years, is being involved with the PRO and having some of the benefits that have been established by great artists or really well thought out music individuals in these larger markets. Because in a town like Nashville, and I never knew this, when you have union musicians going in for a session, you have the demo rate, you have the master rate, and then what's the tier above that? The master if it hits 1 million streams?
Yeah, there's an in-between rate called the limited pressing rate.
Okay, so demo, limited pressing,
and then
master.
Right.
And a system like that is, it may seem daunting when you're going in and you're just looking at a price that you're going to have to pay. But when you think about the sustainability of the industry to represent talented individuals getting paid what they're worth, it's so understandable, because some of these guys at the end of the day aren't going to know whether that song hit 1 million streams or not. There needs to be entities that watch out for these people on the back end.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one retires luxuriously at this stage of the game. One
No.
thing that I would tell artists is, at this point in time, I still make more money from burning CDs in my parents' basement and selling them at shows.
Wow.
Even if no one listens to them. I tell people every time I sell one or give one away, I want to be the only CD in your car. So when your radio has no signal and your phone doesn't connect, guess what you're listening to? And it sounds ridiculous, but there's a time and place where you're going to get that individual ear time. They're going to give you a chance.
Yeah.
And outside of that, the tangible at a $5 cost per copy is going to return more than you're streaming almost every single time if you're an artist of pretty average means. And it's a death sentence to not have a merchandising plan that supports your career, the things that you want to assume in your career. You know, I want to be an artist that's known for my original material.
Yeah.
Your merchandising plan needs to reflect that. And,
Right.
and at this stage in the game, the most profitable part of my original business is the merchandise. So I'm selling lighters and hoodies and all this other stuff that
Yeah.
it may not be why you got in the game of live music. But at the end of the day, if you want to see this thing turn over and be a profitable business at the end of the year, if you want to be proud while you pay your taxes,
Yeah.
then you need to make sure that you look at this as a benefit to you, not a disadvantage or a
Yeah.
burden in your life.
Yeah. I just picking up on that point, I tell artists that I work with, you need to think you should have CDs out, even though people don't buy CDs anymore. But you can sell them think of them as merch instead of as a CD, a traditional CD. I mean, if you're on a major label, they'll take care of all that. I mean, you will release CDs, and some people still buy CDs. But if you're doing live shows as an artist, I would have a CD available, but as a merch sale, not thinking of it like a record store sale kind of thing, or an
Yeah.
Amazon sale. It's going to be something you're going to sell live. And one thing you can do as an artist, first of all, make it look pro, make it look like a major label release. But secondly, people probably will not buy it just outright at a show. They might, but you probably will sell more if you bundle it with a T-shirt or something.
Absolutely.
So you
It's a
bundle it
great additional weight.
Right. You bundle it with a T-shirt and sell it for $25 or whatever you can get. I'm not sure what current pricing is at live shows, but it's probably something around there.
Yeah, and I think especially if you go through making it a very professional looking pressing.
Yeah.
I've gone the opposite route where I individually number the burnable CDs that I burn on a laptop that barely works. It sits down here with me. It's in a little recycled cardboard sleeve and it has a sticker on the front.
Really?
But something that you can sign and you can say thank you with. And
That's interesting.
You shouldn't doubt the fact that just because it's not serving its necessarily primary purpose,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that people wouldn't pay for it and people don't see it as a valuable thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if things go really well for that first song on that EP, people are going to love having that physical copy one
Oh,
day.
sure, that's true.
You know, it's like when I sell a lighter, I don't tell people what to use it for. You know, it's like same thing with the CD. It's a coaster if you want it to be, but if you don't have it on the table, you're missing that opportunity to transact on your primary purpose in the
Right.
game.
Yep.
It's such an interesting thing, though, as Spotify has changed the game. The main issue for all of us artists is that the value proposition has now made the music seem like a free commodity. And as someone that's watched that go through many a change, does that change the way you look at the full song production process? How much you're willing to put into making the final version?
No.
Not at all?
No.
You're a hero for that.
No. So I mean, I'm like a quality Nazi. I think you've got to put out the highest quality product you can, because you're not in the game otherwise. You're competing with people who have big budgets, who are on major labels, who are putting out high quality, well produced, well engineered, well mastered, well mixed songs, product, and you have to be as good as the best in the business. Period.
Yeah.
And so you have to also stop thinking about making money from music itself. You have to most artists make their living now through live shows and merch sales, exactly what you just said. Because the money from the music itself has become very small. Unless you're a major artist or you've got a song that streams in the tens of millions of streams, you're not going to make much money from the music itself. The music itself is essentially your business card. It's your calling card. This is who I am. This is what I sound like. This is my story. Come out to my live show.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it's essentially a way for you to find listeners, convert them into fans, bring them out to shows, and that's where you're going to make your money as an artist.
Yeah. When that kind of touches back on what you're saying about American Idol, it's like the commodity is not the song and the performance. The commodity is the individual and the interest in the individual. And you almost need to look at your listeners as the customer basis that pays you to keep going more than anything else. It's like the job that's been done, the work already rendered, is just part of convincing them that you're worth investing in over time, because you're going to be able to keep coming back and doing that.
Yeah.
It's like I feel very strong when I can talk to an individual and say, this is something I will never stop doing, not because it makes me a rich man, not because I'm looking for creature comforts, because in the same way that you stay up at night and at 3 a.m. if a song comes calling, I'm there to catch it. That's the only thing I have to do in this life. It's a vocation. It is something that we're blessed by, not tortured by. And then if it tortures you, you better make it a blessing real quick. Start having some fun.
That's true. A good example that just came to mind while you were saying that. If you think about Taylor Swift for a minute, I mean, people love Taylor Swift songs, but what they really love is Taylor Swift.
Yes.
So your product as an artist you have to stop thinking that your product is your music. It's part of your product, but your product really is you. People want to get to know you, and they want to get to know you through your music. They learn your story, they learn about you, they learn what you feel, they learn how you're more like them or you're not like them, and they fall in love with you as a human being. And that's what they want. They want that personal connection. And what Taylor Swift does so well is she connects personally with her fans. People love Taylor Swift, and they will. I mean, she couldn't put out anything, but she could put out a lot of variety. I mean, she would never put out any inferior product, but she could do almost anything musically, and people are going to love it because it reveals something about who she is and how she is similar or dissimilar to her fans.
Well, in the Taylor's version, this era of redoing all of her songs with the new masters, and then having your fan base totally transition because they want to support you to their last dying breath.
So smart.
It really was. And also it's inspiring to individuals that, my biggest idol is Prince. I look up to him to the nth. This is a man that for his whole career would tell you that he was a slave to the record label.
Yeah.
And now we live in a generation where you certainly don't have to do that to compete at the highest level. You just need to invest in the things that have true value.
Right.
But you're still watching people climb out from under the rock that they've been, kind of pinned with by the major sides of the industry that, just like anything else, they're just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Warner Brothers, or you look at Sony. These are businesses that thought they had all the leverage, all the capital, all the ability to do so, and then the industry flips on its head, and now you watch people desperately trying to keep doing what they believe they do best.
Yeah.
It's like once you remove the malintent from the industry, and you just start to navigate for what you believe is the most wholesome way to write songs, make records, be on the road, it's more customizable than ever. You don't need a 360 deal to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to have your ducks in a row at the foundation. You probably need Uncle Ed in your life, someone that's been around the industry long enough to say, let's figure out how you're happiest doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out that line between pure art and pure commerce. That means your bills get paid.
Yep.
And then let's just keep staying open to whatever your next song is. One of the great things I hear echoed on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube is whatever you're working on right now, finish it. But don't spend so much time on it that you don't get to the next song. I think you should have that dying belief that your quality should be professional.
Yes.
But don't torture yourself day in and day out and avoid getting on to the next project, because I have this problem in my home studio a lot. I'm always getting a better mic or a better preamp, learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, if I went back and redid that, it
Yep.
could be this much better.
Yes. Right.
Let the next song be that much better.
I agree.
Put a bow on this and
Totally.
try again.
I totally agree with that. Yep. You have to keep growing as a creator.
Yeah.
And everyone, two points about that. Number one, not everything you create is going to be great. Every creator has to realize that every now and then they're gonna do something really special. Most of your work is going to be good, but not all of them are going to be hits. You're not going to write songs that are going to connect with huge numbers of people all the time. So you just have to keep your expectations in line, right, and not be overly self-critical, but commit yourself to constantly growing, learning the technology, learning the tools, developing the tools, becoming masters of the tools that you need to use as an artist. I'm fanatic about this point, because I think that it's not good enough just to be good at what you do. You have to be great at what you do. You have to be a master of the tools. I know so many artists that don't want to get into the technology. They don't want to get into the, anything that has to do with the technology. They just want to stay on the creative side. And I think the days are gone when you can do that as an artist. There certainly are exceptions to this. There are exceptions to every rule. But I think if you're a young artist, especially if you're an older artist, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're a younger artist, you should dig in. You should be able to record your own vocal, for example, and get a pretty good job. You might not get the same quality you'd get at a major studio, but if you're in this for real, you should be able to sit down and record a guitar vocal demo and have it sound presentable, pretty good. Well, that means you need to understand how mics work. You need to understand a little bit about the science, how the science works. How does sound get from here into that box over there and become a digital file that you can hand off to somebody else? How does that work?
Yeah.
And so you have to study this. You have to practice it. It doesn't come easily. It took me years how to understand how to use a compressor, for example. Compression is one of the most complicated, it's just compressors do multiple things, and it just takes a while to listen to A, then compare it to B, then go back to A again, go back to B. Hearing frequencies is another difficult thing to learn, and it takes time. It just takes time and practice. So there are things you have to do if you want to be the best. And I've always said that you can do anything in life. It could be really almost anything, but as long as you're the best at it. If you are the best at what you do, or among the best anyway, if it's a crowded field, you'll make a living at it. You can make a living at it. So the thing is, you have to commit yourself to becoming the best at what you do. Everybody should, I mean, who really wants to be successful at this needs to work hard, study, practice. You not just practice your guitar, but practice recording. A good thing to practice if you're trying to get into production is pick a song that you really love. Somebody, from somebody else's song, a group or an artist that you love, and try to recreate that song in your studio from the ground up. The drums, the bass, the whole thing. Try to do it however you can. If you need to bring in a drummer, fine. If you can play the drum part yourself, do it yourself. If you want to do it in a MIDI drum kit or in a box, in a MIDI in a drum machine, whatever. But try to create exactly the sound that you love that another artist has done. And the first time you do it, you're gonna suck at it.
Crash and burn, baby.
You're gonna suck, and the second time you do it, you're gonna suck, and the third time you do it, you're gonna suck. You just have to keep going.
Yeah.
The weak hands will fall away, and the people who are really committed, who are committed to learning, who are committed to practicing and trying and failing and failing and failing and failing and then finally succeeding, those people will be successful.
Yeah. When it's someone that has spent a career in music in every which way that you could find and in every which way that you wanted to compete, hearing the healthy sense of competition that you keep on the mind is just that's the flavor of life that a lot of people don't understand. It's like the moment you find yourself in the number one position, it's time to reevaluate who you think you're competing against.
Yeah,
okay, and
true.
scale things up a little bit. Scale things up
Mm-hmm.
because you should never feel like you're at the top of the heap, and if you are, it's time for a change in some way, shape, or form.
Probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such especially when we start to look at how certain markets compare to the biggest in the world. It's like my dying dream is that Cincinnati will be recognized as a place where music comes from and has a sound and will do the thing. And I'm not leaving. I'll travel. I'll be on the road. I love going to Nashville, and I see that as the competition. And the people in town that I see not competing with what I'm trying to do, I scream at them once a week because it's like I need you to be the people that I look at rather than them. But until then, I'm looking at them. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
And it's not a Michael Jordan, I'm coming for your throat kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you need to have this be the thing that keeps you up at night.
Right.
And if it makes you unhappy to do that, reevaluate how you look at competition because it should be fun.
Yeah.
It's such an illogical pursuit from the get, so you might as well make it the only thing that you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Well, thank you for continually being such a wonderful motivator in my life, brother. Every time we have a conversation, these things hang with me for weeks, months, years since we first started chatting.
Cool.
Sincerely, you are someone that I know is putting the work in. And the other day when I found that microphone of yours on stage, I was like, this is a great reason to call Ed. And one of Ed's microphones ended up in a venue that I play at. I've never seen a 58 in such bad condition. And knowing you, I was like, Ed would never let this happen.
Exactly.
So I'm making sure this goes home today.
Thank you so much for that, too.
Yeah, if it was a more expensive mic, I would have taken it. But but it's a 58 and it looks grimy.
It's back in the mic closet now. So
yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to plug on the way out?
I do have a new release with John Wayne coming out on the 26th. It's called Jealous of Jesus. And I've got a new release with Brooke Hadla coming out on the 26th. It's called Not the Only One in This Town. It's a great song. Constantly working on new stuff with Sandy Hollop, for example, who's an artist I'm really, really high on at the moment. She's killing it out there. So those three, I think, are at the top of mind at the moment.
Awesome. Well, you are an inspiration, brother. My friend's Ed O'Donnell. Make sure you keep up with his artists. Follow him where you can. And thanks for doing Cincinnati proud wherever you go, brother. You're the man.
Thanks so much, Matt. Great being with you.
Absolutely.